On this episode of Latinas, the ladies of the sketch comedy group Hilarious discuss motherhood expectations. We get the lowdown on the history of Latin Asians and so much more. Latinas starts now. Welcome to Latinas, the show that's all about nuestras mujeres in the Latinx community. I'm Tina Beth Pina. Today is a beautiful day in May in Flushing Meadows Corona Park. And while this is the month where we celebrate our moms, it's also the time of year where we recognize the contributions of Asian Americans in the United States. While Latin Asians are not as well known, they are a diverse group of people with a rich history who share a common thread that defy perceptions of race and ethnicity. Let's take a look.
My dad is half Chinese, half Cuban. My mother is full Cuban, but we grew up in a household where it was mainly Cuban, but we did keep our Chinese ancestry and our Chinese roots.
Maria Lau, a New Jersey born and bred fine art and documentary photographer of Latin Asian descent, documented her Chinese-Cuban ancestry in the multimedia series 71.
I never thought that 71 was going to be what it became, because it really just started with the intention of finding my aunts and fulfilling this wish for my grandfather, for my family. So it became my mission to find them. It took years, and I was able to bring them all together. It was a once-in-a-lifetime encounter that you can never replicate.
Maria is one of millions of Latinos of Asian descent, a trend with historical roots that dates back to the 16th century.
There's an uninterrupted relationship between Asia and the Americas, particularly Mexico and Peru. You know, both Mexico and Peru had ports that had this yearly trade with China, India, and Japan. That was uninterrupted between 1565 and 1815.
The Manila Galleon trade were Spanish trading ships that sailed the Pacific Ocean for over 200 years between Spain, Acapulco, and Manila. Filipinos who were on these voyages were the first Latin Asians in the Americas and were followed in the 19th century by Indian and Chinese laborers who were brought to the Americas as part of the coolie trade.
African slaves were the most important labor force in tropical production. In the Caribbean, in coastal Peru. So there were debates, who was going to replace the slaves. And they thought in Indian indentured workers and Chinese indentured workers. So a large number of them are going to arrive to coastal plantations in Peru and Cuba.
Besides Cuba, Asians also migrated to Brazil, which currently has the largest number of Latinos of Japanese descent. But it's Peru that has the largest Asian population in total of any Latin American country.
If you grow up in Peru, chances are somebody in your family is of Chinese descent. It's like in our blood.
Fabiana Chu, who currently lives in New York, is a fourth-generation Chinese Peruvian born and raised in Lima.
But never really had to, in Peru, explain what it was like to be Chinese Peruvian. I was never asked, when are you going back to China? I was never asked, are you really from here? Never. That was never a question that I was a Peruvian in Peru. It was only once I got here that I started looking into it because people were so curious about what that meant.
Latinos come in all shapes and sizes.
Thanks for saying that. I think that means a lot to me. I'm always curious, and I've always wondered if you lined up four women, and one of them was blonde, blue-eyed, and the other one had nice, beautiful brown hair with brown eyes, and there was a person, say, with some African-American features, and then you put a person who looks like me, and you lined us up, and you ask any passerby, pick the person who is not from Latin America. Who do you think they would pick? And I think they might pick me. So I think we still have a lot of work to do.
While there's still much to learn about Latinidad and the various cultures that comprise it, one thing is certain. The Asian influence in Latin America is huge, and cultural pride, as well as family, is at its core, especially for Fabiana Chu and Maria Lau.
When you go on a journey like this, when you go and you find your ancestry, the most important thing that you find is yourself, your family, what's important. The more you find out about your culture, the more you find out about your history, it will affect you, it will change you.
My name is Nisa Rufino, and my son, Ken Taniguchi, who is Latino and Japanese, was recently attacked in New York City for no apparent reason, except for the fact that he is Asian American. Race-based hate is happening all too often in America and even in the heart of Manhattan. And we need to disrupt the surge of anti-Asian hate crimes. People like my son have become victims of violence based solely because of what they look like. Do whatever you can do to speak out against Asian hate and protect each other. As a mother, I am standing up for my son, and I encourage all of you to stand in solidarity with me against hate, against violence, against racism. Basta ya.
Latinas, like all women, have motherhood expectations, and we spoke to 4 women from the sketch comedy group Hilarious, some with kids and some without, to tell us about how they feel about making babies. And that's the topic of today's Caliente Caliente.
Thinking about kids in my 20s, it didn't exist. I mean, I was out there hard body, you know what I'm saying? I just wasn't thinking about like my reproductive system, and I kind of wish I were, because I had so many problems having children.
I had my son at a young age. I was 19 going on 20. So what I experienced is that I became like this housewife right away, and it was hard. So just like having the child young, it really woke me up to just like, oh, things are serious now, you know?
Mm-hmm. I was never really one of those girls or women that was like, oh yeah, when I grow up, I'm gonna be a mom, you know? Like it was something that I definitely wanted to be, or still want to be, especially because my mom is like my everything. Also, I'm kind of scared that I won't live up to her standards, you know, in a way. It's like, I'm not worthy.
How long do you see yourself maybe getting really ready to have a child, like really making your body ready for a child?
You know, here's the problem is that like, yeah, we got a biological clock, but like there are timelines that are out of our control, you know? Like if I wind up in a position where I can't have children, I will adopt. I don't really think there's a timeline for that. Ideally, if I were to procreate for myself, like I want to be with the person. So I would need the husband first, or at least, you know, somebody who I feel I would be able to have that family with, you know, because ain't nobody got time.
Sis, I hear you.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't have any more.
Nobody got time. I mean, I completely agree with you, Alana, that it's all a matter of the timeline. And yeah, same just like you, I didn't grow up, I don't have kids yet, but same, I didn't grow up saying, one day I'm gonna be a mommy. I mean, I knew I wanted kids, but it wasn't something that I was preparing my body for, my mind for. And now that I'm almost 40, can't believe I said that out loud.
Looking 21 though, looking 21, like a fresh 21.
I mean, our genes here, you know, our genes here are really strong. Really
Latin
strong.
states move like satin.
That's
really
right,
strong.
these genes are strong.
I see myself as being like a mom, like you, super busy, juggling a few hats, and then also, you know, having the baby on the hip while taking business calls, you know, like, because my mother had me when she was 41. So she up there, and, you know, God forbid anything happens to her, I won't have that support system of a mom, you know, down the line. But luckily I have my older sister that would be able to help me, and I just want to be a super mom like you ladies, because it ain't easy.
I hear it's a very, like the most humbling experience
Yes,
you
it
know,
is.
you can have an assistant. I mean, I could use some of that, you know, like everybody could use a little humility.
That maternal instinct creeping up on you. If you're looking for that maternal humble juice, that means that there's maternal juices flowing and there. When I was trying to have a baby, just to go back to that, like, yo, they gave me so many different things to try. There was something I tried called Compuesto Vegetal de la Señora Muller. Do you know about this stuff? Señora Muller is on the bottle, and it's some like old school stuff that tastes like armpit that's supposed to like flush your ovaries and get you pregnant. And then there's the Botella de Embarazo that un amigo de mi tío, he brought it back in like one of those Dominican water bottles. It was swirling with I don't even know what. It was like leaves and stuff that's only found in DR. But I will say, I did get pregnant a month after taking shots of Botella de Embarazo.
Oh, okay.
Our ancestors they were onto something. That's why they were able to pop out 10, 15 babies at a time. I thought it was also because there was no cable, but now that you're telling me about this botella, it makes sense. It makes sense.
So Rachel, we're gonna sell that. We're gonna sell that.
It's like
Totally.
armpit, but maybe it did do something to my fallopian tubes. I don't know.
Rebrand it. I want a picture of you on the bottle.
Yeah.
Like this.
No, and that could be part of the slogan
For
too.
babies.
Tastes like armpit, but works miracles.
Works miracles.
You could do that.
Financial advisor Maria Angeles Bonain is back one last time to give us a bonus tip to becoming the jefa of your money.
Ladies, we are the jefas. We're the jefas at home, at work, at school, with our children, with our family. Are we the boss of our money? Now that we have the goals, we need to budget for those expenses. That budget will have to include an emergency fund. An emergency fund is a pool of money that you set aside for the por si acaso, just in case you have a health crisis, just in case you lose your job, just in case we're in a pandemic, just in case something happens that's unexpected that we need money for. And how much should I put aside for an emergency fund? Well, a good rule of thumb is to have at least 6 months of day-to-day living expenses put aside in another separate account for the por si acasos of life.
Isabella Tejeda is the winner of the Barron Prize for Young Heroes, which annually honors outstanding young leaders who have made a significant and positive impact. The 18-year-old California native created Read a Story, Change a Life, a literacy intervention program that has helped nearly 3,000 at-risk children learn to read and write through storytelling and interactive workshops. It serves children at affordable housing developments, low-income preschools, and local libraries. Her program also supports young students in Uganda, and Isabella has built a team of 120 volunteers and has raised more than $40,000 to fund her work through donations. Isabella Tejeda is today's Badass Latina. It's a tough world out there for Latinas with disabilities, but there is help available from advocacy groups like Respectability and people like Hunter College's Carol Robles Roman. She's doing all she can to level the playing field, and Mike Gilliam has that story.
Carol Robles Roman is on the front lines when it comes to fighting for inclusion for Latinas with disabilities, along with an organization called Respectability.
It's one of those things that it's almost like Me Too. You don't really know. The number that Respectability has in terms of Latinas is something like 500,000 sort of women that are affected.
About a year ago, Carol teamed up with Respectability to launch empowerment training for women with disabilities.
Respectability is a national, nonpartisan nonprofit that fights stigmas and advances opportunities so people with disabilities can fully participate in all aspects of community.
Respectability's former Director of Community Outreach and Impact, Debbie Fink, says Carol has made a major impact.
Carol is an incredible human being, a patriot to our nation, a hero. She has moxie and a moral compass that is remarkable. She shows a commitment to her Latinx community, to women, to anyone in need of civil rights.
Carol was armed with the facts that of the 500,000 women and girls living in New York City with disabilities, 44% of them live below the poverty level. And in the city, only 24% of Latino women with disabilities have jobs. She had always fought for civil rights for others, but that all changed when she found herself facing her own disability. She was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer after being a general first responder working in the courts near Ground Zero following the 9/11 terror attack. The work took a toll. She says she was left with severe respiratory problems. She says she didn't let it stop her, though. She moved forward with a can-do attitude, eventually joining Mayor Michael Bloomberg's administration for 12 years.
I was deputy mayor of the city of New York. I went on to become the CEO and president of a nationally known women's civil rights organization. So I continued to work, and then when I was formally diagnosed, then you take a step back and you realize, okay, I'm an incredibly productive member of the workforce. I am going to need some of those accommodations that I've just spent the last 30 years of my life encouraging workplaces, encouraging colleges, right? Encouraging people to understand.
So, what was it like when Carol went from advocating for others to advocating for herself?
That was the most amazing transition that I ever did in my life. I had to look myself in the mirror and say, Carol, you have to now start advocating for yourself in the workplace. You are a woman with disabilities, and this is a workplace that has not been sensitized to the legal rights and responsibilities that you have.
She says one of the problems she sees is that when it comes to disabilities, it's an area where there is the least amount of hands-on training and where people who have been harmed are the least likely to report or seek guidance. But why?
It's embarrassing, I think, Mike. It's revealing information about yourself many times that you don't want anybody to know.
Carol says COVID-19 has exacerbated the problems faced by Latinas and others with disabilities. And there are still some workplaces not making the proper accommodations.
I think they just don't know. I think most workplaces are well-intentioned.
Robles Roman says there are avenues to pursue in just about all workplaces, as well as state and local human rights commissions that can help with complaints. In the meantime, Carol says the bottom line is just ask.
Just ask. Just ask. And you know the Carol Robles tagline, and don't take no for an answer.
May is also National Arthritis Awareness Month, and while arthritis is very common, it's not well understood. Over 4 million Hispanics have been diagnosed with the disease, and our correspondent, Elena Romero, is one of them. Here's her story.
There are more than 100 different types of arthritis that cause pain, stiffness, swelling, and limited movement in the joints and various parts of the body. Contrary to popular belief, arthritis is not an old person's disease. It affects people of all ages, genders, and ethnicities. I should know, because I've been living with arthritis for the past 7 years.
You're on the younger spectrum of someone that'll come in with arthritis. And it wasn't only osteo, so you also had psoriatic arthritis. It's a bit different to osteo. So with psoriatic, you get a little bit more stiffness. And that's one of the hurdles that we were facing. And it was a lot of elbow stiffness. The ankle wasn't too bad at the time when you first came in, a bit stiff, causing you to walk with a cane.
Arthritis runs in my family. Mommy was diagnosed with osteoarthritis in her early 40s and became wheelchair-bound because of it. Abuela had a milder case and self-medicated with Bengay. Dr. Gary Zagon at NYU Langone has been treating me since my initial diagnosis at age 41.
What's the treatment for arthritis?
There's no one treatment. There are multiple treatments. And it really depends upon what you think the arthritis is coming from. mechanical arthritis like osteoarthritis. It's everywhere between just pain medications, local injections, physical therapy, and then eventually maybe joint replacement. For the inflammatory arthritis, it depends upon what's triggering the inflammation.
We don't know the true number of people with arthritis because many don't seek treatment until their symptoms become severe. In my case, the arthritis started out as mild and later progressed to severe, affecting every joint in my body. Treatment for my psoriatic arthritis and osteoarthritis consists of monthly infusion medication and physical therapy.
Getting a diagnosis of arthritis necessarily mean that disability is in their future?
No, and that's just the point, is that with all the modalities that we have, we can help so many more people.
Physical therapy twice a week over an extended period of time helped me regain the mobility I lost this fall.
The biggest thing you want to do is help to alleviate symptoms. The biggest symptoms that we find are pain and stiffness. To get an idea of what is tailored best for them is the best route to go down.
Dr. Zagon and therapist Cardenas advise arthritis patients not to panic because it is very common and treatable.
The patient plays the biggest role. The doctor can only point the way. The patient really has to take it on themselves to become very active, being their own advocate, finding out what resources are available to them.
Just make sure that you have a good medical and rehab team behind you. So I think the biggest thing is to know that it's not an acute situation, it's not an acute diagnosis, so it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
For Latinas, I'm Elena Romero.
When CUNY alum Kaylin Lopez graduated from Lehman College 4 years ago, she went from coffee drinker to coffee entrepreneur. And that's why she's today's Latina on the rise.
Even in school, I would have at least 5 cups of coffee a day to get me through. But I never anticipated ever starting a coffee business.
But she did. Back in 2019, Kaylin started selling her Kunamonia coffee online while keeping her full-time job in retail. The brand is inspired by her double major in psychology and philosophy.
My name originated from the ancient Greek philosophical term eudaimonia, which means that you have a good indwelling spirit and overall you're happy. So I wanted to base it off of that, and my name's Kaylin, so I added the K instead of the E to make it more distinct. And each one of my specialty roasts, they're named after different philosophers.
From Aristotle to Socrates, each roast has an inspirational quote associated with it, influenced by each philosopher's belief. For example, the medium roast is named after Socrates because of its balanced flavor, aroma, and acidity, which is said to put your mind and soul at ease. Therefore, the inspirational quote reads, "Live a life that's right for the soul."
I feel like when you have my cup of coffee and you're reading what happiness means to them, it kind of helps you start your day in a more positive mindset. And it really challenges yourself to see, hey, what does happiness mean to me? How can I start my day more happy? What can I do to make myself happy and more of a positive mindset?
Ironically, it was tough for the Bronx-born Boricua to keep that positive mindset once the pandemic hit and affected her 100% Arabica coffee business.
It affected me both good and bad. As far as the good, everything was closed. Nobody was really buying coffee anymore. They weren't going to the well-known coffee brands, and everyone was ordering online. So as an online business, it really helped me with my label, and I started getting more orders. My brand gained a little bit more traction, so it helped. And then it kind of went a little downhill as far as making my products and stuff because everything was delayed.
I just need you like some coffee in the morning, yeah.
While Kaylin hopes Kunamonia gets as big as the other Bronx-born coffee brand, Café Bustelo, she is proud of what she's accomplished thus far.
To be able to be doing so well with my business, especially during such a hard time for everyone, is definitely a blessing. My parents are super happy, and they're both coffee addicts, so they love this brand. And my dad has been super supportive, so it's really nice.
Kaylin is currently expanding her coffee brand and is also selling coffee-infused soaps and candles. She offers this philosophical advice.
One of the philosophers that I base one of my coffees off of, his name's Marcus Aurelius. And I really resonate with his theory of happiness, which is that happiness is having power over your thoughts. So for anyone who's trying to start a business, I feel like as long as you have those thoughts that you can do this and you can achieve this and you have that positive mindset, then you can really achieve anything.
And that's our show for today. For more information on what you just saw, check out our website at tv.cuny.edu and follow our social media profiles. We love sharing our Latina stories with you. And please make sure you tune in next month where we'll see how Ayadeli Cassell is making a social impact on young women.
I am everything that I am as an artist because of everything that I am as a Black and Puerto Rican woman.
And we'll celebrate Pride Month and so much more. Uepa! Hasta la próxima. Bye-bye.